What's going on, followers? In today's video, I'm going to show you yet even more Marvel drawings. If you're new to my channel, I've only made 3 videos, and this is my 4th of new concepts of heroes and villains. So let's get started. Since we know how the color wheel theory works, Spider-Man's primary color is red, and most of his enemies are green. Spider-Man's secondary color is blue, but for his enemies, they differ depending on the character. For Doc Ock and Electro, they use yellow, while Green Goblin and the Lizard use purple. When I saw Spider-Man No Way Home, I was amazed by how they adapted the classic yellow Electro. Looking at Google images, to me, it looked like he was wearing a short-sleeved shirt with a vest, cargo pants, and a couple wires and generators attached to each other. Whenever he used his lightning, his mask would activate, and I thought that was cool. So I had the idea of combining the simplicity of the classic comics and complexity of Jamie Foxx's No Way Home costume for my own take. It's basically a green electrician suit with a generator belt, yellow and silver wires plugged into it, and where there were small sparks would flutter. Even his mask, like the movie, is made of his own electricity, only it stays on his face, and whenever he's beaten, they would all shut down. Of course, that's for the classic suit on the left. On the right, that one's based on his ultimate counterpart, where he turned out to be blue. Remember in my 3rd video with the Beetle costumes, where I labeled the green and purple suit as 1.0, and silver and red suit as 2.0 based on their evolution? That's basically the same thing for my Electro concepts. He starts off as yellow, and as he absorbs more power, he turns blue. The Lizard was originally for me more challenging than Venom because he was this humanoid reptile-looking character, and I wanted to base my concept on the one from the new animated series. While not my personal favorite show, it did have some interesting designs. There's something about the snout and crests he had that I really liked, but the issue I was struggling with was, how was I going to draw the head like that when viewed from the front? The answers were research, draw, and experiment. So I looked at other animated interpretations of the villain and anime lizard-like characters to get a feel of what it's like, and I came up with these numerous head concepts, with some of them looking like angular ovals or maybe an extended heart, and some artists just use an angular curve above the nose holes or around the eyes and turning straighter to make it look like an extended snout. Another challenge was these extended ankles, or feet, but it wasn't that hard. They just turned out to be curves on the heels. The feet extend to what I would think the secondary shins, and they connect to the large toes he stands on. That's what my first design turned out to be. Then I looked at other images and noticed that he didn't have those extended feet like the pictures I referenced for my first take. So I just made them more human-like for my second design. Like I said about the color theory, green is a common color used for most Spider-Man villains, and some use yellow or purple as a secondary color. At least that's how it was in the oldest comics. But when you look at some of the modern takes on the character, sometimes they change the pants to a different color, like blue or beige, or completely remove his clothing to make him look less silly. I, however, found a way to adapt the classic scheme without using pants and a lab coat. Many real-life lizards have more than one color on their bodies, and some either have spots, stripes, or their legs fade into their torsos. As a result, I used 2 shades of green for the body and crests, and purple stripes on his back. I don't know about you, but personally, so far, I like the extended feet on the first design, and most of the other details on the second, so maybe I can come up with a design with those mixed up. Believe it or not, the Human Torch has joined the Avengers briefly, and he donned a suit completely different from his traditional Fantastic Four counterpart. Depending on what photos you look at, It's either yellow and black or orange and black, but either way, the suit uses colors that represent fire. I also like that he has a flame logo with a diamond outline around it to kind of make it stand out. This gave me an idea of writing a series where he and Peter Parker go to school together, like in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and they're students of a campus called Avengers University. Johnny would wear this suit and team up with Spider-Man in crime fighting before going separate ways and the Fantastic Four was created. Anyway, I kept the same torso and bicep connected plating, modified the leg plating to be on his thighs, and added orange gloves and boots. Iceman, aka Bobby Drake, also went to school with Peter in Ultimate Spider-Man, so I wanted to include him in the group and create a similar costume with contrasting colors. Blue and white are absolute opposites of orange and black, and associated with ice. Also, notice the purple outline on the white torso? Not only was that made to contrast the yellow outline on Johnny, but it can also be used as a cooler color because of its affiliation with blue. Like Johnny, Bobby would wear this suit before he graduates, and only this time, starts the X-Men with Scott Summers, Jean Grey, Professor X, and everyone else. While Kraven the Hunter is no exception to having numerous redesigns in comic books and TV shows, not much was changed from the oldest pages to the modern day. In other words, one thing most artists keep to make him recognizable is the iconic lion vest. It also gives audience the idea of how dangerous he is, as they describe these big cats as King of the Jungle. Real-life lions have been known to hunt and kill large mammals like giraffes or buffaloes. From what I've gathered, lions can lift up to 1,000 pounds, their bite force is at least 650 pounds per square inch, run about 50 miles an hour, and jump up to 15 feet. Not to mention their groups, or prides as some people call them, are run by a dominant male whose main role is to defend their territory, though it's usually the females who mainly do the hunting. Anyway, I think that's why they usually keep the lion vest, but one big change they've made is the pants. See, in the original comics, they looked yellow with spots of a leopard or a cheetah. I based my design more on the ultimate look, where he basically had blue pants. Though I do plan to have him evolve into wearing brown pants as the series progresses. Anyway, I'm pretty satisfied with the color palette I went with so far. The only thing I changed in my second take, however, was mainly just the thickness of the mane. I think it makes more sense, as it gives you the idea of how big and powerful he looks. As for his background, I'm still kinda working on it. I've been thinking of making him half Australian like in the Ultimate comics, but from what I've gathered, he initially wasn't received well by fans because when he first met Spider-Man after his battle with Doc Ock, he easily overpowered Kraven with one punch, humiliating himself on his own live TV show. So, some fans believe he just looked like a chump. However, he did reappear in the Ultimate 6 arc, where it's shown he tampered with his DNA, giving him the ability to turn into a lion-like form. He escapes S.H.I.E.L.D.'s custody, along with Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Sandman, and Electro, in an attempt to capture Spider-Man and make him join them or get revenge on him. On the other hand, in his debut from the original comics, he put up more of a fight with Spider-Man, which made him more of a threat. So, I feel like possibly making an amalgamation of the two. Yet another thing I like about the Ultimate Spider-Man comics is how they rewrote Rhino's name. It became an acronym for Robotism Heuristic Intelligence Navigable Operative. The suit was also apparently armor created by the US military and stolen by a scientist who attached himself to it, and he became this human cyborg. I think this is also backed up by the fact that he has red eyes, so I wanted to recreate the exact image so that anyone who's read those books would recognize the look and background. Looking at images of Ultimate Rhino, I know the suit was meant to be silver, but I also think the artists may have used a small tint of blue. I don't know what they were thinking when they did that, but I kinda like it, mainly because it's unique from the usual pure gray. I did my own takes on Morris Bench, aka Hydro-Man, one with his black shirt and blue pants, and the other with his Hydro suit. I also had the idea to adapt the character's debut from Amazing Spider-Man number 212. When Morris gets into the accident that gives him his hydrokinetic powers, he blames Spider-Man for it, and his plan for revenge is to blackmail him into surrendering to him by capturing Human Torch in his own liquid body. If you ask yourself who would win in a fight between Human Torch and Hydro-Man, it may feel like the latter considering we know that water douses fire, but you know what heat does to water? Evaporate it to steam. Also, Human Torch actually has the ability to increase his body temperature without lighting up on fire. Plus, he has a maximum output called Nova Flame, allowing him to go as high as 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So while Spider-Man is overwhelmed by the situation Morris is putting him in, Torch comes up with the idea of turning up his heat to evaporate him and break free of his grasp. This is of course when he wears his regular civilian clothes. When he returns, he joins Dr. Doom and dons the blue Hydro suit. In closing this video, I decided that I wanted to try drawing Spider-Man in two more dynamic poses. The first one is swinging on a web line, and the second one is shooting another web line. These poses were referenced from a book called The Complete Guide to Drawing Action Manga, a step-by-step artist's handbook by Makoto Sawa. The first pose is based on the jumping with momentum pose, where the legs are spread out. One of the notes states that even if the character is tossed by someone else in midair, the will to naturally jump causes the tips of the toes to lift, and I think that could also apply to one way of how Spider-Man swings. Only his arms are tucked in more to his waist, like he's pulling himself a little bit. The second pose is based on catching a baseball, where the character is diving and about to catch it with his mitt. Both of their stomachs are parallel to the ground, their arms are stretching out, and their torsos are twisted a bit for a more natural appearance. Except, Spider-Man would be falling dozens of feet before he shoots another web. Well, I'm gonna wrap it here for now. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. I hope you liked my concepts. See you in another video.